large, his lower jaw protruding slightly, a pale echo of the ancestral Habsburg jaw. His upper teeth never quite met the lower. Eating required effort. He often swallowed food half-chewed. Court chefs softened meats in broth and soaked bread in wine. During banquets, an attendant discreetly wiped saliva from his chin. The empire dined on porcelain, its prince on mush. At 15, the doctors recorded a growth arrest. His height froze at barely 1.55 meters. His shoulders narrow, his limbs thin, his skin almost translucent. Puberty brought no change. The voice never deepened. The body remained childlike. Privately, the physicians suspected endocrine failure, a collapsed pituitary system similar to what later geneticists would identify in other inbred royals. But the report was sealed. Scandal was a greater threat than disease. The imperial family, desperate to prove continuity, began planning a marriage. They needed heirs, symbols of strength and public reassurance that the line still bred true. Yet even the emperor hesitated. How do you marry a boy who can barely stand, whose mind drifts in and out of coherence? Still, tradition demanded it. Power demanded it. At 19, Ferdinand experienced his first grand mal seizure in public. During Mass at the Hofburg Chapel, he stiffened, eyes rolling back, limbs thrashing as horrified nobles looked on. When he regained consciousness, his first words were an apology to God for interrupting the sermon. The spectacle cemented his reputation as fragile, almost saint-like, the sickly archduke who suffered for the sins of his house. But behind the pious legend was sheer neurological chaos. By 20 it was clear that Ferdinand's intellect would never mature. He could memorize prayers but not state documents. He could mimic etiquette, but not understand policy. Ministers began quietly managing the empire in anticipation of his eventual figurehead reign. The question wasn't if he could rule, it was how long the illusion could be sustained. And so the palace, gleaming with chandeliers and gilt, became a gilded asylum. Ferdinand lived surrounded by attendants, doctors and priests, who whispered constant reassurance. Outside, the world changed, revolutions brewing, ideologies clashing. But inside, time congealed around a prince trapped in childhood. The empire's greatest secret was not hidden in vaults or archives, but seated at its own dinner table. The future Emperor of Austria, a living monument to genetic decay. At 22, Ferdinand was proclaimed heir apparent to the Austrian Empire. Courtiers cheered, cannons thundered, and the bells of Vienna rang, as if celebrating a victory. But behind the sound of triumph, doctors exchanged uneasy glances. The heir's hands trembled constantly, his eyes blinked out of rhythm. During ceremonies, he would freeze mid-gesture, caught between thought and seizure.